afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Tuesday stream. I know that my 13 days in the crypt wasn't exactly smooth. It got kind of busy for me, and I ended up not being able to put as much work into the streams as I wanted, and I just felt as though I was kind of half-assing it, and I didn't think that was right to try and share with you guys, especially if I get things wrong. I don't want to, I don't want to, like, spread misinformation on it, especially with cultural practices. I wanted to make sure that I went into detail on things, and I just couldn't dedicate as much time as I wanted to it. That might help a little bit with the sound. So, hello everybody, hello. I am exhausted. I made the mistake, so I had a Halloween party on Saturday, and I made cookies for it, little, like, sugar cookies with, candied walnuts halves on it, and the walnut halves were, the candy on it was red, so it looked like little brains, rat brain cookies, and I may have, overdone it and eaten too many of these cookies, and my stomach wasn't too happy with me. I probably ate like 9 cookies. So, yeah. Stomach's still not happy with me, and I am just tired. Like, complete sugar overhaul. I don't really eat sweet things, but man, those cookies were good. Shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have done it. Anyways. Nobody cares about my upset stomach and overindulgence of sugary treats. So let's go on to the first news article of the day. Line and hook fishing techniques in epipaleolithic Israel. Humans in the Middle East were using complex fishing tools and techniques by 12,000 years ago, according to a study published October 6, 2021 in the open access journal PLOS ONE. Fish have long been an important part of human diets, but it is challenging to study the history of the technology humans have used to acquire fish, in part because early fishing gear was made from perishable materials like wood and plant fibers. In this study, Pedernana and colleagues examined a collection of fishing hooks and stones from the archaeological site of Jordan River Direjat in northern Israel, at least 12,000 years old. The team analyzed the shape and residues of 19 bone fish hooks, as well as size-grooved pebbles that appear to have been used as sinkers. Altogether, one of the largest collections of early fishing technology, plant fiber residue on the hooks and stones indicate the use of fishing line, and the wide variety of hook shapes, including multiple arrangements of barbs and multiple methods for attaching hook to line, reflecting their utility for catching a variety of fish. Additionally, groove lines and fiber residue on the bends of some hooks indicate the use of artificial lures. This study identifies some of the earliest evidence of complex fishing technology. I mean, if you think about it, using a fishing line is pretty, like, complex. Like, instead of going straight for the fish, you've got to try and lure the fish. It's different. You got to know, like, what's going to entice the fish, what sort of movement's going to, and then they had different types of hooks to assist in grabbing that fish. So, pretty nice. The use of lures and wide variety of hook shapes suggests that humans at this time were not only hunting a broad spectrum of fish, but also that they had profound knowledge of fish behavior and ecology, like I said, on what's going to entice the fish to bite. These innovations coincide with broader patterns in human subsistence evolution, which mark the beginning of the transition to agriculture in this big region of the world. The authors add, except for the use of metal and plastic, modern fishing has not invented anything new since the Natufian. A look at the JRD fishing gear reveals that all fishing techniques and knowledge already existed some 13,000 years ago. The finds highlight the importance of aquatic resources for the emergence of sedentism and the Neolithic lifeways in the Levant. So yes, that's interesting, just being able to extrapolate like how advanced and what they had to have had knowledge of fish behavior is from a few fishing hooks. It's just cool. So cool. Okay. New dating method shows Vikings occupied Newfoundland in 1021 CE. CE is Common Era. There's kind of a push for different uses instead of the ones based on Judeo-Christianism, so Common Era or like before present is people are pushing for that more. So instead of like it's AD that they normally used, they're using CE. Retrieving evidence of an ancient solar storm enables scientists to pinpoint the exact year of Norse settlement. 3 rough pieces of wood, discarded sections of branches, and tree stumps found among the refuse Vikings left behind after their short sojourn in Newfoundland have turned out to be some of the more important evidence of the Norse in North America. The scars left by iron blades on these sections of fir and juniper can still be seen after more than 1,000 years. Was it the legendary Viking explorer Leif Erikson himself whose blade chopped off these unwanted scraps? Might it have been Thorfinn Karlsefni or his wife Gudrid, the lesser-known explorers of a different Viking saga who tossed these useless scraps aside? Many questions may never be answered, but researchers now have an extraordinarily precise date for when Norse hands and blades worked in the New World. A new study of wooden artifacts found at Newfoundland's famed Lance aux Medals site shows that Vikings lived and felled trees on North American soil exactly 1,000 years ago, during the year 1021 CE. 1021, that's like very specific. The evidence published today in Nature means that these Norse seafarers accomplished the earliest known crossing of the Atlantic from Europe to the Americas. Such incredibly precise dating of the wood was possible thanks to an intriguing new method that examined growth rings for a once-in-a-millennium cosmic ray event that showered Earth with high-energy particles in 993 CE. Whoa! Finding that telltale spike in the tree rings allowed scientists to count additional rings outside that mark, to pinpoint the exact year the Vikings cut fir and juniper trees here. As they lived and explored on the edge of the continent. Okay. I am impressed by the results, says Thomas McGovern, an archaeologist at Hunter College in New York City who was not involved in the research. The site continues to provide data after all these years. I think the date is totally plausible and fits with Brigitta Wallace's original idea of a fairly short, circa 1,000 settlement event, adds McGovern, who has spent 2 decades studying the demise of North settlements in Greenland. Wallace, a former Parks Canada archaeologist and co-author of the research, spent many years working at the Lance aux Meadows site, moving across the frigid waters of the North Atlantic in their legendary longships. A few thousand Vikings colonized Greenland for almost 500 years, building churches and communities, keeping records, and maintaining ties with Europe before mysteriously vanishing for reasons that still stir debate. They left behind clues, bones, artifacts, clothes, and other remnants, which scientists are still piecing together their story. The remains of 8 sod and timber buildings were found, including workshop spaces and a forge used to craft iron tools. Experts consider Los Olmedos a base for further explorations, a site where Norse might overwinter, repair their ships, or stockpile provisions and trade goods. Such sites are described in the sagas as key waypoints in the Vinland adventures of explorers like Ericsson. Here we are fixing in time where somewhat legendary Norse sagas, says co-author Michael D., who specializes in the study of isotope chronology at the University of Groningen. We're providing some scientific evidence to say at this exact moment in time this happened, which actualizes them a bit more. I'd like to know if the Native Americans of that area have stories of foreigners coming. That'd be interesting to look at. Timber was critical for the Norse in Newfoundland. Wood provided fuel for heat and cooking, as well as material to construct timber and sod buildings and famous Viking longships. Hundreds of wood chips, shavings, and discarded pieces have been found in the workshops of Los Olmedos. Co-author Margot Keatons, also of the University of Groningen, sorted through wood scraps. Okay. Wasn't looking for outstanding examples of Norse woodworking skill. What we used was basically rubbish, she says, which was really good for research because were looking for the pieces of wood that included their bark edges. If you have an artifact or even a construction beam, often those outer layers are stripped off. The bark would be part of the ingenious dating method endgame. Dendrochronological archives from around the world in Germany, Ireland, Arizona, and Japan provide evidence that in 993, a cosmic radiation event, probably an enormous solar storm, caused a huge spike in atmospheric carbon levels that can clearly be measured in tree ring samples. On rare occasions, once or twice a millennium, you get these blips in the record, probably from solar storms, that created a sudden surge of radiocarbon that gets absorbed by that tree ring. Okay, so that's cool. I don't know if I would call that a whole new dating method, but yeah, certainly an ingenious way to get the exact 1021 CE that they have. That's cool. So, as you probably know, trees grow in rings, and as it grows, it lays down very specific, like you can count them. You just take a little magnifying glass and you can count them and see how old the tree is. Each layer being in a year. And then you can count them back and see so you test each layer, you see a spike in, the 20th layer of that tree from the center, you know that was the cosmic radiation event, which is 993, the year 993, and then you can count out from that. And if you have the bark, because it grows, each layer is laid upon the previous one, so growing out, you don't want to lose those last ones, otherwise your date's going to be a little off. But using it from the bark, you're going to be able to be like, oh, it was exactly 10 years after this cosmic event, and bam, you have the exact date. That's fun. That's cool. Interesting. They were there a long time ago, and I actually would like to look into some of the oral history of the natives in that area at that time to see if they have anything. That would be a huge event, that some really weird giant ass people show up, that are very different from you, and they're like, oh yeah, we crossed the ocean, there's land over there, there has to be something. I want to look into it now. Okay, next, new species of human ancestor named Homo bodoensis. Terrible name. I wonder if it's after the place they found it. Probably, that's usually what it is. An international team of researchers led by University of Winnipeg paleoanthropologist Dr. Mirhana Roxandic has announced the naming of a new species of human ancestor, Homo bodoensis. The species lived in Africa during the Middle Pleistocene around 500,000 years ago and was a direct ancestor of modern humans. The Middle Pleistocene, now renamed Chivanian and dated to... I've never heard that term. Now renamed Chibianian. So it's between 774,000 and 129 years ago. It is important because it saw the rise of our own species, Homo sapiens in Africa, our closest relatives, and the Neanderthals in Europe. However, human evolution during this age is poorly understood, a problem which paleoanthropologists call the muddle in the middle. The announcement of Homo bodoensis hopes to bring some clarity to this puzzling but important chapter in human evolution. The new name is based on a reassessment of existing fossils from Africa and Eurasia from this time period. Traditionally, these fossils have been variably assigned to either Homo heidelbergensis or Homo rhodesiensis, both of which carried multiple, often contradictory definitions. Talking about human evolution during this time period became impossible due to the lack of proper terminology that acknowledges human geographic variation, according to Roxandic, lead author on the study. Recently, DNA evidence has shown that some fossils in Europe called H. heidelbergensis were actually early Neanderthals, making the name redundant. For the same reason, the name needs to be abandoned when describing fossil humans from East Asia, according to co-author Zhu Ji Wu, Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology. Further muddling the narrative, African fossils dated to this period have been called at times both H. heidelbergensis and H. rhodesiensis, or H. rhodesiensis is poorly defined and the name has never been widely accepted, which is true. This is partly due to its association with Cecil Rhodes and the horrendous crimes carried out during colonial rule in Africa, an unacceptable honor in light of the important work being done toward decolonizing science. The name bodoensis derives from a skull found in Bodo Dar, Ethiopia, and the new species is understood to be a direct human ancestor. Under the new classification, H. bodoensis will describe most Middle Pleistocene humans from Africa and some from Southeast Europe, while many from the latter continent will be reclassified as Neanderthals. Well, that's what this paper is saying is going to happen. That doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. You got some stubborn people. The classification system is difficult. You got one scientist who thinks they're the same species, another scientist who says the slight exaggerated curve of this one is going to make it a different species. There's a lot of debate, and I wouldn't say that that's going to be what happens, because there's a lot of people who have says in this, and there's not just like a council of paleoanthropologists who go over everybody's work and says, you know what, we're doing it this way, everybody's going to classify things in this manner. That's not how it goes, and everybody's slightly different. The co-first author, Predrag Radovic, Faculty of Philosophy, University of Belgrade, Serbia, says, terms need to be clear in science to facilitate communication. They should not be treated as absolute when they contradict the fossil record. Well, it's not that things are contradicting, it's that it's a very difficult way to think. Animals do not fit perfectly in boxes. You don't go from an Australopithecus mother to its baby being a member of the Homo genus. It doesn't just switch like that. There's very long period of slow change that's going to take place. And at what point does it become a new species? That it's not easy to get that. So they're wanting these clear-cut boxes, and it's not going to work. And you're gonna, hey Drewski, how's it going? I hope you're enjoying this. This is interesting. It just really great article to show how difficult and it can be to classify things and to get a clear image, especially when you only have part of the puzzle pieces. The introduction of H. bodoensis is aimed at cutting the Gordian knot and allowing us to communicate clearly about this important period in human evolution, according to one of the co-authors, Christopher Bay, Department of Anthropology, University of Hawaii at Manoa. Roxandic agrees, naming a new species is a big deal, as the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature allows name changes only under very strictly defined rules. We are confident that this one will stick around for a long time. A new taxon name will live only if other researchers use it. Exactly. So, sorry, thought something was wrong with the dog. It's not like a council's going to meet and say this is how it's going to be done, and everybody's going to say you're going to have to convince scientists, and there's people who are very stubborn, and people who it's hard to change the language and the way people view how connected these fossils are, how these fossils are connected. So they're coming in and saying we're going to clean this up and you're going to use it this way. We'll see. I personally don't know. I think I'm going to have to actually read it. Is this it? Experts, species, yeah. I think this is it. Okay. I'm gonna use this. Yeah, I don't know. They were saying that, where is it? That Homo heidelbergensis in Europe were actually just Neanderthals. I've heard them just likened to Homo erectus, not Homo neanderthal too, so, yeah, difficult. I'm definitely going to read through this, and I might give you guys an update on my thoughts on using bodoensis, right? Bodoensis, and whether the classification system works, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it's going to work to everybody's opinion, but interesting stuff. So, John Hawkes, a paleoanthropologist, has his own blog, and sometimes I like to read what he has. Today, it's Louis Leakey on the failure of the stage model of human evolution. So, he just kind of quoted what Louis Leakey said. If you don't know who Louis Leakey is, he's one of the biggest names in paleoanthropology. The Leakey Foundation is very big and famous, and yeah, if you want to study in certain areas for the cradle of humankind, it's going through the Leakey Foundation, really. So let's see what he said. Current findings on human evolution have brought us to the position where much of what we believed to have theoretically happened proves to be incorrect. Much that is in the textbooks, much that is still being taught in universities about human evolution is no longer true. which is true. New discoveries every day, different ideas and connections are made. But it continues to be taught because the implications of recent discoveries are insufficiently understood. It was principally Weidenreich, LaGrosse Clark, and a few of the people of that generation just previous to mine who put forward a strongly defended the idea that man had gone through a very simple series of stages of evolution. The Pongid stage, an Australopithecine stage, a Pithecanthropus stage, and then man as we know him. Today, theoretically, this had always seemed highly unlikely to some of us, since it meant that man had done something which no other mammal had done. We all evolved in a single straight line instead of having one main branch, with many experimental side branches, which failed to make the grade. Yet the old theory persists, linked that it is the concept still very, very widely taught and very widely believed that man in the relatively near past was at a Pongid or 8 stage of evolution in such a very short time, 3 or 4 million years, as the books and many of my colleagues put it. We are supposed to have lost our huge canine teeth, lost our simian shells, lost our long brachiating arms, ceased to dwell in the trees, and many other similar, but I fear erroneous concepts. These were theories which, in the light of current facts, no longer stand up. So, that's a good quote. It's a long quote, but it's good. So, you know the classic, like, evolutionary picture of, like, you got the chimp, and then you got a chimp that's kind of walking upright, and then you got a straighter and straighter until you got, like, modern man. Completely wrong. It's not like that. It's actually branching trees where there's dead ends and everything. This species didn't make it, that species didn't make it. And then there's also, I don't know if a tree is really the best way to show it, because tree branches don't really grow back together. They just continue to spread out. Whereas like a river can go back together, and it does happen. We know that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens reproduce together, and so I think like utilizing a river could work better and make it a little more fluid for it. There's one image, and I've showed it on the stream, I don't have it right now, that shows it much more like fluid-like and like a river where things can split and come back together, and it shows it like over the different continents and like how many there probably were, how prevalent the population was. I like that one. I do really like that one, and I think I personally view it as more beneficial than a tree, and so much better than a straight line, because things are not straights and they don't go in boxes. Okay, the surprising origins of the Tarim Basin mummies. As part of the Silk Road and located at the geographical intersection of Eastern and Western cultures, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region has long served as a major crossroads for trans-Eurasian exchanges of people, cultures, agriculture, and language. Since the late 1990s, the discovery of hundreds of naturally mummified humans remains dating to 2000 BCE to 200 CE. So, like I said before, we're getting away from before Christ, doing BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. In the region's Tarim Basin has attracted international attention due to their so-called Western physical appearance, their felted and woven woolen clothing, and their agro-pastoral economy that included cattle, sheep, and goat, wheat, barley, millet, and even kefir cheese. Buried in boat coffins in an otherwise barren desert, the Tarim Basin mummies have long puzzled scientists and inspired numerous theories as to their enigmatic origins. The Tarim Basin mummies cattle-focused economy and unusual physical appearance has led many scholars to speculate that they were the descendants of migrating Yamnaya herders, a highly mobile Bronze Age society from the steppes of the Black Sea region of southern Russia. Others have placed their origins among the Central Asian desert oasis cultures of the Bactria Margiana archaeological complex, a group with strong genetic ties to early farmers on the Iranian plateau. To better understand the origin of the Tarim Basin mummies founding population, who first settled the region at sites such as Xiaohui and Gumugao, circa 2000 BCE, a team of international researchers from Jilin University, the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, Seoul National University of Korea, and Harvard University, generated and analyzed genome-wide data from 13 of the earliest known Tarim Basin mummies, dating to circa 2100 to 1700 BCE, together with 5 individual dating to circa 3000 and 2800 BCE in the neighboring Zungarian Basin. This is the first genomic scale study of prehistoric populations in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and it includes the earliest yet discovered human remains from the region. They were not newcomers. To their great surprise, the researchers found that the Tarim Basin mummies were not newcomers to the region at all, but rather appeared to be direct descendants of a once widespread Pleistocene population that had largely disappeared by the end of the last ice age. This population, known as the ancient North Eurasians, survives only fractionally in the genomes of present-day populations, with indigenous populations in Siberia and the Americas having the highest known proportions, at about 40%. In contrast to populations today, the Tarim Basin mummies show no evidence of admixture with any other Holocene groups, forming instead a previously unknown genetic isolate that likely underwent an extreme and prolonged genetic bottleneck prior to settling in the Tarim Basin. Archaeogeneticists have long searched for Holocene ANE populations in order to better understand the genetic history of Inner Eurasia. We have found one in the most unexpected place, says Chunwang Jiang, a senior author of the study and a professor of biological sciences at Seoul National University. In contrast to the Tarim Basin, the earliest inhabitants of the neighboring Zungarian Basin descended not only from local populations but also from western steppe herders, namely the Afanasyevo, a pastoralist group with strong genetic links to the early Bronze Age Yamanya. Genetically but not culturally isolated. These findings of extensive genetic mixing all around the Tarim Basin throughout the Bronze Age makes it all the more remarkable that the Tarim Basin mummies exhibited no evidence of genetic admixture at all. Nevertheless, while the Tarim Basin groups were genetically isolated, they were not culturally isolated. Proteomic analysis of their dental calculus confirmed that cattle, sheep, and goat dairying was already practiced by the founding population, and that they were well aware of the different cultures, cuisines, and technologies all around them. Despite being genetically isolated, the Bronze Age people of the Tarim Basin were remarkably culturally cosmopolitan. They built their cuisine around wheat and dairy from West Asia, millet from East Asia, and medicinal plants like ephedra from Central Asia, says Christina Warner, a senior author of the study, a professor of anthropology at Harvard University. Oh, she's at Harvard now. And a research group leader at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany. Reconstructing the origins of Tarim Basin mummies has had a transformative effect on our understanding of the region, and we will continue the study of ancient human genomes in other areas to gain a deeper understanding of the human migration history in the Eurasian steppes. So, they were willing to trade culturally, but not genetically. I wonder if that was due to others not willing to mingle with them, or them not willing to mingle with others. It's interesting. interesting. Genetically speaking. I don't want to read that one. So I think I'm kind of done for today. A little bit of a short one, but interesting. Yeah, we've got mummies being discovered genetically who they're with, and we've got new species possibly, well, renaming, recategorizing of things. I will definitely read through this and give my opinion on it, whether or not it's even likely to happen, not likely to happen, good idea, bad idea, according to my opinion. Obviously, I am not the only person out there studying paleoanthropology, and by far not the most knowledgeable at all. Anyways, it was lovely having you guys here, and I hope to see you guys next week, Tuesday, 4 o'clock, and I will see you then. Have a wonderful evening.